There are a lot of things that you have no idea what happened during these months, but I accept that. But I'm not going to change. When I want to change my philosophy, I will change. If not, you have to change the man.
The Etihad might be the last judge for Ruben Amorim's United journey. Yesterday's 3-0 demolition wasn't just another defeat. It was a damning verdict on 14 months of promises, failure, and stubbornness that has left Manchester United in crisis.
Every defeat is a crisis if you're the Manchester United manager, and he's had plenty in his short period in time.
This is the man who ended Sporting's 19-year title drought, who walked into Old Trafford with a tactical blueprint that was supposed to revolutionize English football's biggest underachievers. Instead, Amorim is now presiding over statistics that would embarrass a relegation candidate. A win rate of 24%, United sitting 14th after spending £232 million on his hand-picked attackers. The Portuguese media are calling it a national shame. United fans have turned toxic, and the question that started as a whisper has become a roar. How bad is Ruben Amorim actually? Before we can understand why Ruben Amorim is under siege at Old Trafford, we need to go back to the moment that convinced Manchester United they had found their savior. It was March 2020. Sporting CP were in chaos, a club haunted by 19 years of failure in the league, a fan base that had lost faith, and into that storm stepped a 35-year-old with barely 9 top-flight games under his belt. Ruben Amorim. Sporting paid Braga a staggering fee for him, making him one of the most expensive managers in history. For many, it looked like madness. But almost instantly, that gamble became genius. In his very first full season, Amorim delivered the impossible, Sporting's first league title since 2002, ending nearly 2 decades of torment. They didn't just win, they went unbeaten for 32 straight games, boasting the best defensive record in Portugal. Amorim, just 36, was named Manager of the Year. And it wasn't just about results, it was about identity. Amorim's football had a distinct shape, a back three anchoring the defense, wingbacks flying forward, a midfield pivot controlling transitions, and young attackers free to roam. It was compact without the ball, electric when it won it back. Players flourished under him. Victor Gyökeres became the league's top scorer. Gonçalo Inácio went from academy product to one of Europe's brightest young center backs. Sporting suddenly looked modern, fearless, and united under a clear vision. The success continued. More domestic trophies, consistent Champions League qualifications, and a second league title that re-established Sporting as genuine contenders. Then came Europe, where Amorim's Sporting side showed the continent exactly what they were capable of. Disciplined in defense, fearless in attack, and tactically mature beyond their years, they played with a clarity that turned heads across the footballing world. Suddenly, Amorim was no longer just the young coach who ended Sporting's domestic drought. He was a manager, proving that his ideas could stand on the biggest stage. From that moment, the whispers began. Liverpool, City, even Real Madrid, Europe had taken notice. But it was Manchester United who moved first. In November 2024, desperate to escape a spiral of mediocrity, they turned to Amorim. For £10 million, they believed they had bought not just a manager, but a philosophy, a young visionary coach who could rebuild their identity the same way he rebuilt Sporting's. That's the promise United fans were sold, and that's the promise against which every defeat, every collapse, and every humiliation is now measured. Amorim came to Manchester United with a principle, the 3-4-3 formation that had defined his success at Sporting. At Sporting, it was perfection. Here, it's becoming the very thing that's exposing every weakness. The 3-4-3 demands very specific player profiles. Wingbacks who can attack like wingers and defend like fullbacks. Midfielders with strength in transition, high work rate, and positional discipline. Forwards who aren't just finishers, but intelligent, mobile threats who move between lines and stretch defenses. At Sporting, he had all that. Academy products and stars like Gonçalo Inácio and Ivan Fresneda as wingbacks, Daniel Bragança to break up play, Marcus Edwards for progression, Pedro Gonçalves among the leaders in creative goals. It worked because the squad was built for it. At United, however, the pieces are less suited. Some players have been shifted out of their comfort zones. Members of the attack who once thrived in free-roaming roles are being asked to conform to rigid positional demands. Others expected to fill roles for which they lack either the physical traits, the temperament, or the style required. Diogo Dalot, for example, has been used as a wingback, but lacks natural left-footed balance and inconsistent end product when pushing forward. Luke Shaw, when fit, remains more comfortable in a back four than he has shown in a three-back system with all the attacking responsibilities. The center-back units have been shuffled too often, trying to force players into positions where they don't instinctively feel safe. It's not just about discomfort, it's about losing cohesion. Players seem unsure of roles, defensive cover is inconsistent, and transitions expose gaps that Sporting's defense never allowed. What was once Amorim's strength, his system's clarity, has become a liability. Fans see the difference. The praise for Sporting's beauty turns into criticism for rigidity. The same style that once elevated him is now the lens through which errors are magnified. And perhaps worst of all, adaptation, one of the hallmarks of successful coaching, seems underutilized. Belief in a system is admirable, but when rigid belief overrides adaptability, the cracks widen. And in the high-pressure world of Old Trafford, those cracks are very visible. After the catastrophe of the 2024/25 season, where Manchester United limped to a 15th place finish with only 42 points, Ruben Amorim was handed what many believe to be a rare second chance. The club backed him heavily. Matheus Cunha arrived to bring movement and creativity, Bryan Mbeumo to add pace and directness, and later, after the season had already begun, Benjamin Šeško was unveiled as the great striking hope for the future. The rebuild seemed alive, and with a strong preseason tour that ended with silverware, there was a fleeting sense that perhaps United were finally turning the corner. When the Premier League kicked off, United did show real moments of promise. Long spells of control and an avalanche of chances, but it wasn't an 80-20 rout. United registered around 61% possession and 22 shots, yet failed to turn pressure into a goal. An early Arsenal corner was mishandled by the goalkeeper, and Ricardo Calafiori nodded home the only goal. Those flashes of brilliance only made the frustration worse. Dominance without reward, and a narrow defeat that exposed the same defensive frailties and lack of cutting edge United had hoped the summer signings would solve. A week later at Fulham, they squandered a lead, missed a penalty through Bruno Fernandes, and looked tactically flat, as if nothing had changed despite all the investment. Then came humiliation of the highest order. In the Carabao Cup, United fell to League 2 Grimsby Town on penalties after a 2-2 draw. A night that should have been routine became an unthinkable embarrassment. The shootout dragged into absurdity, and when it ended 12-11, the unthinkable was real. Manchester United dumped out by a fourth-tier side. For many supporters, this wasn't just a defeat, it was a symbol of a Giants' collapse. Days later, Burnley came to Old Trafford and United scraped through a chaotic 3-2 victory. Even worse, injury struck. Matheus Cunha forced off. A victory, yes, but one that left United looking weaker than before. And then the Derby, the true measure of where a manager stands. At the Etihad, Manchester City delivered a ruthless verdict. 3 goals unanswered, United suffocated from start to finish. Phil Foden dazzled, Erling Haaland bullied, and Amorim's much-vaunted system collapsed under the weight of City's dominance. It was a defeat not just in scoreline, but in spirit, a confirmation that the gap was wider than ever. Even the goalkeeper's position became a symbol of turmoil. On deadline day, United moved for Sene Lammens, while Andre Onana quietly departed on loan days later. It was yet another sign of a club in transition, constantly shifting, never stable. By mid-September, the optimism of summer was gone. The expensive signings had not solved the deeper structural problems. The same fragility, the same tactical rigidity, the same doubts that plagued last season were back. Fan patience was exhausted. Voices of dissent grew louder, and every game began to feel like a referendum on Amorim's future. Manchester United, once giants of English football, found themselves staring at a familiar question. Not whether they could challenge again, but whether their new manager could even survive the storm. Before we deliver judgment on Ruben Amorim, fairness demands a pause. Is he really the root of Manchester United's crisis, or simply the latest victim of a poisoned chalice? When Amorim walked into Old Trafford in November 2024, he inherited more than a broken squad. He inherited over a decade of institutional decay. The culture was fractured, the recruitment scattergun, and the expectations impossible. Every manager before him, Moyes, Van Gaal, Mourinho, Solskjaer, Rangnick, Ten Hag, arrived with with pedigree and left in failure. Amorim stepped into the same storm. Yes, the club spent heavily this summer. Matthias Cunha, Brian Mbeumo, and later Benjamin Šeško gave the attack new weapons. But Amorim's own requests went unanswered. He wanted a defensive midfielder and press-resistant creators. Instead, the spine of the team, midfield control, defensive stability, remains unaddressed. United invested in goals without fixing the structure behind them, and yet beneath the chaos, there are traces of progress. The underlying numbers show a side creating more chances than almost anyone in the league. United are pressing higher, entering the box more, and giving themselves opportunities to win games. The problem isn't chance creation, it's fragility at both ends of the pitch. There are also green shoots in youth development. Lenny Yoro, just 19, already looks like United's most reliable defender. Amad Diallo, long forgotten under previous regimes, has been reborn in a hybrid wingback role. For all his faults, Amorim is at least laying down a pathway for the next generation, and we should remember what brought him here. At Sporting, Amorim ended a 19-year title drought, rebuilt a culture, and outclassed European heavyweights with tactical clarity. A coach who showed the world in Europe what his team is capable of is suddenly incompetent the moment he landed in Manchester. History offers a warning. Klopp's early struggles at Liverpool, Arteta's chaotic first years at Arsenal, even Ferguson's rocky beginning at United, all were nearly written off before becoming transformative figures. The question is whether United, a club addicted to short-term fixes, have the patience to find out if Amorim belongs in that company. Broken institutions don't heal overnight. Cultural changes take time, and sometimes the right coach arrives at the wrong moment. Amorim may not be as bad as his critics claim, but he's certainly not as good as his admirers hoped. He's a talented coach learning harsh lessons about English football's unforgiving nature. The real tragedy isn't Amorim's struggles, it's that Manchester United have become a place where good coaches go to fail. Until that changes, the cycle will continue, regardless of who sits in the manager's chair. What do you think? Is Amorim the problem or just the latest symptom of United's deeper issues? Let us know in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this deep dive into one of football's most controversial figures, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell.